Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures, the solo actual play podcast where stories are told at the speed of dice. With me, Steve Morrison, your game master and solo player. Now come on, let's grab the dice and see where our story goes. Welcome back for I'm going to call it an old school episode of Errant Adventures, as I am playing Artefact by Jack Harrison today. And I call it an old school episode because I have no notes, I have no script. It's just me, the game, and a microphone. So for those of you who follow my other project with Matt Risby of The Bad Spot, our kind of monthly podcast called The Ironsworn Guys, we have on there a challenge. We each select a few different tabletop RPGs that we've never played before and commit to playing them over the course of the year. And Artefact is one of the games that I chose. Artefact is a solo journaling game where you play as an artifact, aptly named, that has a life of its own as you are carried by a variety of different keepers over the years of your existence. So it's pretty straightforward. I've got the document here in front of me. There are some different options as far as the items go. And I think really without any more fanfare, we should just jump in. So to start to play, we're going to choose an artifact. Each is an archetype of a sentient magical item. They have thoughts and desires and can communicate directly or otherwise with their keepers. There is here a list of different artifacts, and looking at this list, there are things like a weapon, a shield, instrument, ornament, footwear. There are 9 options here, and the last one is an automaton, which I think I'm going to ignore. And I'm just going to take a D8, and I'm going to roll that D8 to determine randomly which artifact I'm going to play. A 4, which is the ornament, jewelry, charms, and trinkets, small but potent. Next, we're going to create our item. So we've chosen our artifact. We're going to answer the opening question about the item's creation. Describe the person who made the item and add 3 traits to describe its starting properties. So the question for the item creation is: you were crafted from the rarest gems and metals by a master artificer. Describe them, their materials, and their fateful forge. I think for this ornament, we're just going to go classic. It's going to be this medallion on a silver chain, and that medallion has these ancient arcane markings kind of etched into them. And I think the artificer is an incredible artificer from Aelfheim, this ancient and powerful island nation where the Fae and some mortals live in peace. I think that this artificer's name is Zuthair, and I think that they are Fae, and they are ancient even amidst the immortal Fae around them. They are an artificer of incredible legend. And I think that they possess this ability to find veins of metal and sing into the stone to release that metal into a form that they then take into the deep forge beneath the city that they live in. And they form these artifacts using this song and these metals that they've drawn forth. And this amulet is one such item that has been created. Now we have to pick 3 traits. Traits are characteristics that describe the item. They might be physical or magical properties or facets of its developing personality. So each artifact has some suggested traits. The ornaments' suggested traits are obscuring, sensing, protecting, strengthening, healing, spectral, whispering, summoning, elemental, kindling, clockwork, evil, tender, beguiling, tricksy, mercantile, loyal, curious, and blessed. I am going to say that our artifact here is whispering, beguiling, and curious. With artifact, typically you sketch out your item. I'm not going to do that here since this is an audio medium, but just kind of keep in mind that this artifact at the start is this relatively simple medallion that has these inlays of beautiful filigree with this silver chain that it hangs from. Now, for the rest of the game, we're going to inhabit this item and perceive the world through its strange inhuman senses. And we're going to begin our 3-act tale of this artifact by choosing our first keeper. So we're going to describe the keeper. These are the steps that we'll do in every act. We're going to describe the keeper and the acquisition of the item. We're going to answer the keeper's question. We're going to choose from one of the tables of victories and valor or neglect and mischief. We're going to answer an artifact question, consider how the keeper loses the artifact, and move to time to wait for a new keeper. So there are active phases, and then there is the time in between when the artifact lies dormant. So in Act 1, this is newly forged. We choose a keeper from amidst a folk hero, a young noble, a rogue without master, or a revolutionary leader. Now again, because there are 4 options here, I'm just going to roll a d4 and let the dice choose for me. That is a 3, a rogue without master. They are daring, charismatic, and talented. What marks them as a soul unburdened by servitude? How did you help them pull off their boldest stunt yet? Those are the 2 questions. We're going to answer those questions. But first, let's describe this rogue without a master. And I think it's fitting that the person who forged this artifact is an ancient Fey artisan on the island of Elfheim. And I think that there are many who come to this place, who come to this workshop to learn from Zuthair, to attempt even just a little bit to gain some of the knowledge to create items and artifacts as magnificent and powerful as those that Zuthair creates. And I think one such student is a young Fae by the name of Asharia. And Asharia comes to the workshop to learn these skills, but The thing about learning from a great creator, a great artisan, is that they make demands upon your time, upon your attention. And I think that Asharia is in many ways impatient, too impatient to sit and listen at the feet of Zuthair. And in fact, she just wants to create. She has this burning need within to create. And because of that burning need, every time she starts to work on a project, she goes too far. She expends more effort and more energy. And almost every time, Zuthair stops her and says, "No, you must slow down. You must go back to the beginning and do this right." And I think that irks her. That drives her mad. As she knows that if Zuthair just stepped aside and let her go, let her do her work in the way and the manner that she wants to, that she would create something that could rival even the creations of Zuthair. And I think that's part of what drives Asharia to do what she does. That's one thing that drives her. The other thing is the whispers in the dark. As she chafes against the tasks that are set to her in the service of Zuthair, she hears this voice calling and saying, "Asharia, Asharia, together we can explore the world. Together we can be free. We can go far from Elfheim and see the world." And I think it's that combination of feeling stifled by Zuthair and the burning desire to create something amazing that leads her one night into the workshop, past the doors into Zuthair's private study. Perhaps the great master is even sleeping in a bed in a corner of this place. She steals into the room. And as she does so, that whispering becomes more and more insistent. And she finds this amulet tucked in a box on a shelf in a corner of this study. And even before she opens the box, she feels this thrill, this excitement, as she recognizes a kindred spirit within this box. The thing that is hidden here wants to be free, wants to roam the world and discover new things. And so Sharia takes out this amulet, places it over her head and tucks it away, and steals out of the room. Together, they flee from the workshop. Together, they depart Elfheim to see the world. I think that answers the questions of what marks them as a soul unburdened by servitude and how did the amulet help them pull off their boldest stunt yet. So now we're going to choose one from the victories and valor or the neglect and mischief. It feels appropriate that this would be a neglect and mischief option. So we're going to choose an option from below, answer the questions, and change something as you become hardened, jaded, or vindictive. Changing means that while you're playing the game, the item evolves and develops, shaped by its experiences, by time passing, and the keepers who wield it. At various points, you are asked to change something about the item. This usually means adding, removing, or modifying a trait, a detail about the physical appearance of your item, a detail about something in your world, a name, a faction, etc., a response to one of your artifact questions. So looking at our list here, there are 6 questions on the neglect and mischief. I am going to roll a d6 to pick which one for me. 5. You intentionally deceived or refused to help your keeper, leading to their demise. What took place and why did you act in that way? I think that it's years away now. Asharia and the amulet have been traveling together, exploring the world, covering thousands of miles on foot, on horseback, on boats. I think they come to a place. It is one of the first human kingdoms in this world. And there is an ancient, even to this point, an ancient city. And maybe it wasn't founded by humans, but the humans occupy it now. I think there are a vast array of catacombs beneath this ancient city. And for a time, Asharia and the amulet explore it. And then Asharia starts to feel the urge to move on because she feels as though the knowledge that they seek in this place, it's not really here. But the amulet convinces her. Those consistent whispers in her ear that they need to just go deeper. And I think that Asharia is convinced. And together they descend into these catacombs further and further, just pushing their luck until at last the final light goes out. The final food ration is eaten. And alone, deep in the darkness beneath this ancient city, Asharia dies, pleading with the amulet to guide her out of these catacombs. And I think that the reason the amulet refused to help her is because Asharia was not the only one to hear whispers. And I am going to change the curious trait to obsessed. Obsessed with some mystery, some piece of knowledge that is hidden deep within. Now we're going to answer an artifact question. There are 5 of these questions, so let's just go ahead and roll a d6 once again, and we'll re-roll on a 6. 4. You helped your keeper outsmart the brute and take him down for good. Now the story is a popular legend. What major detail do people get wrong in the retelling? So this is a few years before Asharia's demise. And they are in one of the northern areas of this continent. And there are these heavily fur-clad humans who have formed a small village and are fighting against the cold and the darkness of this place. Because there is a particular ore that they are mining from the earth. And this ore is the thing that Asharia came here for. But they were reluctant to give it to her, which is, I think, understandable. Because they scrabbled so hard and so long to pull it out. And their own smiths are attempting to forge weapons and items out of it. But Asharia arrives. She tries to convince them to give her this. And they refuse. And so she challenges their champion to a fight. The tale of Asharia, Fablast, and Olgar the Broken is known in many parts of the land in years to come. The major detail that people get wrong, however, is that Asharia, Fablast, carried a blade of light that she used to strike down Olgar. In fact, her weapons were mundane at best, but the amulet beguiled those who were there, including Olgar, and confused him. And so those who left the site of this battle remember this shining light that she carried in her hand to strike down their champion. Now, the next step would be to consider how the Keeper loses you. I think we already know that. Asharia dies deep within the catacombs of this ancient city. So now it's time to move to the next portion of this act, which is time. Choose the amount of time you must wait until your next Keeper arrives. Follow your chosen option's instructions. As you rest, think about the silence and solitude of abandonment. The options here are no time at all, a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade. Well, this amulet is lost in the depths of this catacomb. So I think I'm going to go with the longest option here. I'm going to go with a decade. Now, the cool thing about Artefact is the instructions are rest for 1 minute. And I think that is literal of, as a player, you are supposed to pause and just sit in silence for a minute. So I think that what happened to Asharia is something unlike anything that the Artefact has seen before. The Fae are long-lived, and to some, considered immortal. But of course, no beings of this world are truly immortal. But But I think it does beg the question of why would Asharia die of deprivation if Fae are so resilient? And I think that this is the crux of that mystery that the artifact has been toying at the edges of, which is there is something ancient, even more ancient than the Fae, buried deep within these catacombs. And whatever it is, it sapped away the life of Asharia. And so maybe even before the amulet realized it, she was too weak to continue. And then she was gone. And in that silence and solitude of abandonment, I think the amulet becomes even more obsessed with solving this mystery, because it's the only way to absolve the guilt, maybe even, that the artifact feels. So now that we've completed our rest, we're going to choose another keeper. So we're going to go back and select another one. So I think this time it's going to be a young noble. They're wealthy, educated, and fashionable. Describe the landed family that they are descended from. How are you used in the noble's cutthroat politics? It's been a decade of the artifact sitting in the depths of this catacomb when an expedition stumbles upon the body of Asharia. And this young noble, whose name I don't know, so I'm going to break out my handy-dandy Ironsworn oracles, and I'm going to roll a character name. Ibrahim. So this young noble, Ibrahim, I think he was a teenager when Asharia came to the city. And I think his family is, maybe it's his grandfather, sits on the ruling council of this city. And I think he had the opportunity to meet her once, because she came to this place seeking knowledge and seeking resources. And who better to provide knowledge and resources than the powerful lords and ladies of this city? And I think Ibrahim spent a little bit of time with her. And when she descended into the catacombs and never returned, I think that aided him. And so he did his own study, his own research, and he assembled a small group of adventurers and led them down into the depths. And I think because of that decade of solitude, the amulet hears the thoughts of this group of people exploring the depths and reaches out to them, calling upon them, calling upon Ibrahim. He finds the body of Asharia. He finds the amulet and he takes it up. This young, dashing nobleman who's grown into his adulthood. They take the body back up, provide her a resting place. And time passes. Ibrahim's grandfather dies and his father becomes that person on the council. And then his father dies and Ibrahim becomes the person on the council. And during that time, the amulet whispers whispers to him about the secrets beneath the city. Not only the secrets beneath the city, but the secrets of the city, the other noble houses, one of them plotting against his family. And so he decides to strike first. He has this other family murdered in their beds. There's an outcry, and then those who outcry are struck down as well. Always, somehow, Ibrahim knows who it is that is seeking to harm or to stand against his family's rise in power, until Ibrahim is no longer just a member of this ruling council, but is the prince of this city. I think this is going to be neglect and mischief again. So we are going to roll our d6 again. If we get a 5, we'll roll again. 3. You were put on display to decorate a wall. You rested there for a long time unused. What was the room like? Were you kept clean and shining, or did the dust and grime pile up over the passing years? So I think once Ibrahim becomes the prince of this city, he's older now, and he feels these whispers kind of constantly in his head, and it's starting to feel a little bit maddening. Now, you can't throw away the amulet, but he does put it on display in a room in a corner of the palace. The room is not often visited by Ibrahim. And so dust does pile up. Occasionally, servants come through and clean it. But the amulet sits in this small, unlit room, stewing, reaching out with its whispers. But Ibrahim has almost built up a tolerance to this. And so he's able to, at least for a time, resist the call. It's during this time that the shrouding occurs, the shrouding of Alfheim, when some great cataclysm falls upon the Fey kingdom, and it's cut off, surrounded by this horrible mist, this shroud of darkness. And I think there is a changing of the world, and the artifact feels it. This amulet feels this change in the world because it is inherently Fey magic. And I think maybe even for a moment, it feels something new, which is fear. Time for another artifact question. I'm going to pick the first one here, which is over time you gain a name or honorific. What is it and why? I think over time it becomes called advisor. And that's because Ibrahim, when he talks about, he doesn't want to talk about like, oh, I hear these whispers of my amulet. So he talks about his advisor. And many of his advisors think that they are the advisor. But at least for a long time, it is the amulet. The amulet is the prince's advisor until it's put away in some dark corner of the palace. Consider how the keeper loses you. I think, as often happens with a rise in power, there are those who do not wish to serve beneath this prince. And the time comes when revolution strikes. Maybe it's another noble house. Maybe it is peoples of the city who feel as though they're being oppressed by the prince. But the blades come out, and Ibrahim falls. And Ibrahim's advisor is forgotten to time. Time to choose another amount of time before a new keeper arrives. I think it's only a year this time. Surely it wouldn't take all that long for someone to search and find the amulet. And I think what it is there is a time where advisor is silent, stewing in being left in this room. And so those who walk past this door, this small little door that goes into this small little storeroom where it's hanging on the wall, don't even register that there's something there, because advisor is putting off this aura that makes them turn away. Until at last someone stumbles upon them. Now, I'm not going to pause us for 40 seconds again. We complete our rest. If you've already chosen 2 keepers from this act, move on to Act 2, a time of glory to choose your next. So we'll do so next time. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures. If you enjoyed the show, please spread the word. And if you want to support the show directly, leave me a review or support me on Patreon at patreon.com/errantadventures. You can also buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/errantadventures. If you want to interact with me, my handle on all the socials is @errantsolopod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the deep, liars.